Life has a way of testing us, often in ways we can't imagine. But it's also true that within every challenge, there lies a secret, a way out, a path to freedom. This story is about how I, once lost in the shadow of poverty, found my way to a brighter future. It's about loss, regret, heartbreak, and the undeniable power of hope. It's about how a single decision can change everything, and how sometimes we need to let go of our fears to grasp the life waiting for us. I remember the first time I truly understood what poverty felt like. I was just a kid, but the weight of it was real. My mother, a hard-working woman, did everything she could to keep us afloat. But there were days when we didn't know where the next meal would come from. I watched her struggle, trying to make ends meet, her eyes tired but determined. Yet, despite her efforts, there were things we couldn't afford. There were dreams we had to bury because they were too expensive, too far out of reach. One day, a letter arrived. It was from a scholarship organization that promised hope for kids like me, kids who were stuck in a cycle they couldn't break. The letter felt like a lifeline, but also a cruel reminder of the barriers I faced. I had so many dreams, but could I really make it out of this trap? Could I succeed when so many had failed before me? That year, I lost my father. He had been a pillar of strength in our family, and his sudden passing left a hole so deep I couldn't even begin to comprehend it. I stood at his funeral, numb, my heart heavy with grief, and I couldn't stop the flood of emotions. The words I never said to him, the promises I never kept, echoed in my mind. I had so many regrets, so many things I wished I had told him. And now it was too late. His death brought a wave of despair, but also a strange clarity. I knew I couldn't continue to live in this pain, this endless cycle of loss and heartache. I had to change something. It was in that moment that I realized the first truth. I couldn't let my father's death be the end of my story. I had to make sure that his sacrifice meant something. I had to fight for a future, not just for me, but for him. Months passed, and life seemed to be one setback after another. I couldn't afford college. My dreams of becoming a teacher seemed impossible. I watched my classmates get scholarships while I stayed behind, struggling. I felt isolated, alone. Every night, I would sit by my window, staring at the city lights, wondering if anyone else felt as invisible as I did. I was alone on my birthday, the one day I hoped for something to change. But nothing did. Then came the day I found the old family photo. It was of my father and me, taken just before he fell ill. In the picture, he was smiling, proud of me, full of hope. I had forgotten that feeling, that sense of love and pride. The grief was consuming me, but that photo reminded me of the promise I had made to him long ago. I would get out of this. I would find a way to break free from poverty's grip. Not just for me, but for him. And so I decided to take action. I enrolled in a local community college, applying for every scholarship I could find. I worked part-time jobs, doing anything I could to make ends meet. I faced rejection after rejection, but I refused to give up. I cried many nights, feeling like I was never going to make it. But each tear fueled my determination. I would prove them wrong. Years passed, and I still struggled. There were moments of heartbreak, of realizing that my relationships had crumbled because I couldn't give them the attention they deserved. My heart broke when I realized that I had sacrificed so much of myself to chase a dream that seemed so far away. But even through the loneliness, the pain, and the sacrifices, I kept going. I kept working, kept believing. One evening, I sat in my tiny apartment, looking at the stack of unpaid bills. My heart felt heavy, but I wasn't ready to give up yet. That night, I received a call from the scholarship organization I had applied to years ago. They had finally found room for me. My hard work, my persistence, it had paid off. Tears flooded my eyes as I realized that I had made it. After years of struggle, I had finally found a way out. But the road wasn't easy. I had to leave behind relationships, friends who couldn't understand my drive, and moments of joy I couldn't afford. The loneliness was suffocating at times, and I often questioned whether I had made the right choice. Was the dream worth the price I was paying? I didn't know. But I knew one thing for sure. I had to keep going. As I stood on the stage, holding my diploma, I couldn't help but think about the people who had helped me along the way, the mentors who had taken a chance on me, the friends who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. The sacrifices they made for me were not lost on me. I had done it. I had escaped the trap of poverty. But the victory wasn't as sweet as I thought it would be. Achieving my dream meant that I had lost some of the most important people in my life. My family, who had once supported me, now felt like strangers. My friendships had withered as I focused all my energy on my studies. There were moments when I wished I could go back and undo it all, but I couldn't. I had made choices, and now I had to live with them. Still, I found a new sense of purpose in my success. I started giving back to my community, helping others who were once in my shoes. I mentored kids who felt lost, offering them the same hope that had been given to me. I built relationships, not just with people who needed my help, but with the family I had almost lost. Slowly, I began to heal, to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made. One day, I received a letter. It was from a student I had mentored, someone who had been in the same position I once was. They had graduated, just like I had. They thanked me for being there when they had nothing. That moment, that simple act of gratitude, made everything worth it. Looking back now, I see how far I've come. From the darkness of poverty, From the pain of loss, heartbreak, and loneliness, I've built a life I can be proud of. But I also realize that none of it would have been possible without the love and sacrifices of others. I didn't escape poverty alone. I had help. And it is with that knowledge, that understanding, that I find peace. This journey wasn't easy, and it never will be, but it was mine. And in the end, I learned that escaping poverty is not just about money or success. It's about resilience, love, and the unwavering belief that no matter how dark it gets, the light will always find its way through. The years that followed were filled with growth and transformation. It wasn't just the financial stability that changed, but my entire view on life. I had once believed that escaping poverty meant climbing up the ladder of success and leaving everyone behind. But I soon learned that true freedom wasn't about rising above others. It was about lifting others up along the way. There were days when the weight of my past would crush me. I'd remember the days when my mother would cry quietly in her room after a long day of work, knowing that she couldn't provide everything we needed. I'd think of the nights when we ate what we could find in the pantry, barely scraping by, hoping that things would get better. I would sit alone, wondering if this was all life had to offer, but I always came back to one thought. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. One summer afternoon, I met a man named Michael. He had been through struggles of his own, a man whose life was filled with regret and loss. We sat for hours in a small cafe, sharing our stories, our pain. He told me about his failed marriage, about the years he spent feeling lost and defeated. It was as if I could see myself in him. And in that moment, we both realized that we weren't so different. We were two people who had faced the same demons but chose to fight back. Michael had lost everything, but in losing it all, he had learned what truly mattered. That conversation changed me. Michael didn't have riches, and he didn't have the perfect life, but he had something more valuable: peace. He had found the ability to forgive himself and move forward. His story reminded me that no amount of wealth could fix the deeper wounds we carried inside. Success wasn't about possessions. It was about the strength to keep going, to find peace within ourselves. In the following years, I dedicated myself to helping those who were still trapped in the same cycle I had once been in. I started volunteering at local shelters, offering advice to young people who felt hopeless. There were days when the stories they shared would break my heart. But I also saw the flickers of hope in their eyes, the same hope that had once burned brightly in mine. I would remind them, as Michael reminded me, that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but it would always be worth it. One day, a young girl named Sarah came to me, tearfully recounting how she had to drop out of high school to help support her family. She felt as though all her dreams were slipping away, just like mine had. I listened to her and shared my own journey, telling her about the sleepless nights and the pain of not knowing how I would make it. But I also shared the victory, the moment I realized that my dreams were still within reach, as long as I was willing to fight for them. Her eyes lit up with a spark of hope as I encouraged her to keep going, to find a way to finish her education, no matter the obstacles. "You're not alone in this," I told her. "I've been where you are, and I know you can get out of it." That conversation stuck with me, because it wasn't just about Sarah. It was about the countless others who needed someone to remind them that they mattered, that their dreams weren't too far out of reach. The emotional weight of my journey would sometimes still weigh on me. I'd think of the years I had wasted, the relationships I had lost, and the moments I could never get back. But instead of drowning in regret, I chose to embrace those memories as lessons. The pain had shaped me, but it didn't define me, and it certainly didn't have to be my future. I had already lived through the worst. Now, I was determined to make every day count. A few months later, I received a letter that would change everything. It was from my old high school, offering me an award for my community work and efforts to give back. They wanted to honor me at a ceremony, and as I read the letter, I was overwhelmed with emotion. I never expected to be recognized for my hard work, especially not by the place where I had once felt so invisible. It was a humbling moment, one that reminded me of how far I had come. From the girl who had cried herself to sleep wondering if she would ever escape poverty, to the woman who was now making a difference in others' lives. On the day of the ceremony, I stood before the crowd, feeling a sense of pride I hadn't known before. The applause filled the room, but it wasn't the recognition that meant the most. It was the realization that my struggles, my pain, my losses, they had all been worth it. Because they had shaped me into someone who could give back, who could lift others up in their darkest moments. In the years that followed, I continued my work. I found peace not in financial success, but in the relationships I had built, the people I had helped, and the impact I had made. I found peace in knowing that my father, wherever he was, would be proud of the woman I had become. I found peace in forgiving myself for all the mistakes I had made, the relationships I had neglected, and the dreams I had let slip away. There were still days when I felt the weight of everything I had been through. There were moments when the loneliness crept in, when the grief would return like an old friend, and when the temptation to give up seemed stronger than ever. But in those moments, I would close my eyes and remember the faces of the people I had helped, the students I had mentored, the friends I had made along the way. I would remember the words of Michael, the man who taught me that peace comes not from what we achieve, but from the courage to continue moving forward. I often think about those days when I felt like I had nothing, when I was trapped in the suffocating grip of poverty. I think about how far I've come, how much I've changed, and how I've turned my pain into purpose. I still carry the scars, the memories of loss and heartbreak, but they no longer control me. Instead, they remind me of the strength I found in the face of adversity, And so, I continue my journey, knowing that the road may never be easy, but it will always be worth it. I've learned that escaping poverty isn't just about escaping financial hardship. It's about escaping the mindset that keeps us trapped. It's about believing in ourselves, no matter how difficult the circumstances. And it's about finding peace, even when everything around us seems uncertain. Because in the end, the true escape lies not in our circumstances, but in the choices we make, the strength we summon, and the love we share. In this journey from shadows to light, I discovered the most important lesson of all, that no matter where we come from, no matter what we've lost or endured, there is always a way out, a way to rise, to rebuild, and to find our place in the world. The secret isn't in escaping poverty. It's in transforming our lives with resilience, hope, and the unwavering belief that the best is yet to come.